After we got the Miller Trailblazer home, and I tore it apart and realized that there was no piston in it, there was a couple other things that went wrong with it. Not really went wrong, that was wrong with it. It was missing a piston, and then I got the block right here in front of me. We're going to look at that block here in a minute. But the reason I really quit working on the Miller Trailblazer was really wasn't the motor part, although that was one of the main reasons that I did. I had a piston sent to me by a viewer that was watching a live stream or was watching one of the videos and got a hold of me through email and then ended up sending me a piston. So I had 2 pistons to put this thing back together. I need to order a set of heads, I believe. The heads that I have on it, they might work, but probably not. But on the motor itself, though, well, let me flip this thing over here. And I'll upload some pictures in here to let you guys see what we're talking about here. But on the 2 heads, when I took the heads off, I broke a couple bolts off on one of the sides of the head. I don't remember which one it was. So I spent some time and got them. They actually came out. I got them removed. I was able to run some thread chasers back down in there and get the threads all good. So the block that way is good. But on the exhaust up here, we had a bolt that broke off and I could not get it out. I ended up drilling it out, and now I got to re-tap it, possibly with a bigger size. I'm not sure yet. I did get a tap and die set, but haven't got around to tapping that out. And then the other problem with the motor is I can't get the crank out. This is the bottom of the motor, and we can turn the crank right here, and it turns pretty easy, pretty smooth. But if we look, and it might not show up, but right there, and like I said, it might not show up at all. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a gouge there in the piston where that rod connects. And then on this side, right down in here, which you ain't gonna be able to see at all, there's another gouge, and then you can see how the rust of the piston there is all rusted up. So this crank really does need to come out. If we spin it to, I think, this hole right here. So this hole right here was the hole that the nut got, or the bolt got broke off in. And I tried to remove it and I could not remove it at all. I actually broke off one of my removal tools trying to get that out, and it broke off in there. And I had to drill it out. And I still think there's a little chunk down in there. But I got to re-drill that and then re-tap it. But I think it's going to end up being a bigger size than these till I get it threaded back in. I think it's going to end up being bigger than that. And you can see down in here just all the gunk and stuff that's down inside there, down inside the valves and stuff like that. And to get this crank out, you got this gear right here on here and the 2 bolts. And they're an odd size. You just can't go down to your local hardware store and buy bolts. The thread side is a weird thread size. Plus you need to have them really long. So I got to order them offline. And they're not even easy to find online. So I'm not even sure how to try to get this gear off to get the crank out, because you have to take this gear off to get the crank out. And then the last thing with this motor, this flywheel here. And I've actually had a couple tools hooked up to this, and I got the bolts. These bolt threads are easy to find. And I've actually had a couple tools hooked up to this trying to get this thing off. And for whatever reason, I cannot get this thing off. I took a torch and heated up around where it hooks to the crank. I've taken this bolt out, obviously, and this washer, which is tight right now. Not too tight. Let me take this off real quick. So, you got that. And I've taken a torch and heated this up here. Not like one of these torches here. One of these little torches like that. And tried to heat this up, and then hooked up my tool to it and tried to crank it, and this thing will not budge. And of course, you got to take this thing off and that gear off the other side in order to get the crank out. But just the fact that I couldn't get the crank out, I wanted to get the crank out, maybe put a different crank in it, or at least get it reworked, and that hole in the exhaust. But that was on the motor side. But really the big reason why I quit working on that welder was I'm not sure if the generator part or the welder part's actually going to work. After doing a little bit of research on that, I kind of came to the conclusion that it might not work at all. So I went down and got some gas for my little MIG welder I got, that 140 Hobart. And it was a Miller shop. They sell a bunch of Miller parts, a bunch of Miller welders, a bunch of replacement parts. Pretty much, it's like a Miller, kind of like a Miller dealer, I guess. And I went in and talked to the guy about getting parts for the Miller Trailblazer to try to, to pick up parts if I needed parts, whatever I would need. And he told me that if the motherboard, I believe he said it was, if the motherboard on the Millers are shot, the whole welder's junk. You can't even get the parts to that. It's not worth fixing because it gets too expensive that you could just buy another welder cheaper than it's going to be to fix that one. And I'm thinking that maybe the motherboard is shot. So I think what we need to do is I definitely do want to get back to working on that, and hopefully I can make some videos here coming up in the next couple weeks, or at least once we get in the summertime, is trying to find a replacement motor that isn't too expensive. Because like I said, I've already dropped $300 in the motor. I picked up a couple parts, not a lot of money, but I picked up a couple parts, and I don't want to go drop another $300 or $400 in a motor or more if you buy like a new motor or something like that, just to get to hook it all up and then find out that the generating part and the welding part of the welder actually is shot and the welder is pretty much junk. And now I'm out the $300 for the welder plus the $300, $400, or $500, whatever I got wrapped up in a motor that is basically just collecting dust in my shop at this point. So I've been looking on the old Facebook Marketplace, trying to find something that's close so I don't have to drive a couple hours. I found a couple of replacement Onan motors, a couple 20 horsepowers, and I think I found an 18 horsepower. But I think the closest one was like a 4-hour drive. And I just can't justify driving 4 hours, even if it's like, and they were in the $200, $300 range. I'm trying to find something that's close, like within a half hour. And it don't have to be an Onan, obviously. I mean, pretty much any, I think it's a vertical, horizontal shaft. Any horizontal shaft, like 18 or 20 horsepower engine, should work. But I'd have to do a little bit of research on that. But that's really the main reason why I quit working on that Miller Trailblazer. Just everything that's adding up between the motor, having to try to get a motor or get this motor replaced, the parts replaced on it, and the actual welder itself, whether the generating part or the welding part is actually, or the motherboard is actually still good in that welder, because that welder has obviously been used and abused. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, hopefully we're going to get working on that. Hopefully I can find a motor that's close that we can bolt on there and just check out to see if the welding part and the generating part is going to work. Because if it's going to work, I don't have a problem dropping a couple $100 into a good engine to put on it if I know the welder and generator part is going to work. And I don't know if there's any way I can test that beforehand. And I've been trying to do some research and haven't found anything like that. But anyways, there is 4 or 5 videos about me getting that welder and doing some work, pulling the engine apart, working on the engine and stuff like that. I'll put the links in the description below. And you can go over there. You can go on my channel. I got a playlist on my channel if you want to do that. It's called Miller Trailblazer, I believe, or something like that. Miller Welder. There's 5 or 6 videos. There's a couple live streams if you want to dig through the live streams where I was actually working on the motor on a live stream. So like I said, I'll put the links in the description below. There'll be a bunch of links down there for a bunch of other stuff. If you want to check that stuff out, go into the comment section. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you would do if you had this thing. Maybe just throw it away. I don't know. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video.